Welcome back, everybody. Starting off the afternoon session. So we've got, you're following a good, nice lunch, so that'll be a little bit of a challenge, but we're all rooting for you. So we've got a presentation from Algae, and this should be a very interesting presentation from David Ramjung. And to David's credit, he has modified the title of his presentation to something that I think is going to be very interesting: facilitating algae entrepreneurship from value proposition to value extraction. And it really fits in with the themes that we've had so far today. So looking forward to this one. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Eric. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to try to make sure that you don't fall asleep after that wonderful lunch. I might fall asleep. I think we've heard quite a bit so far today that all seem to make sense. I mean, we may disagree with one or two points here and there, but I think we can all agree that the issue here is finding the value in algae and making it a commercial success. I start off with this slide: the industry that cried wolf. And I say that because after you've been pitching to enough venture capital summits and investment type opportunities, you realize that from the time these folks hear the word algae, their eyes roll up to the back of their heads. Why is that? Because for 8 decades or so, we've been trying to get algae commercialized for biofuels. And 20 years ago, you'd hear people saying, oh, we'll be replacing petroleum in the next 10 years. Hasn't happened. A lot of people have lost their investments. A lot of companies have gone away. So we are now the industry that cried wolf. We have to, basically rebrand ourselves. This is what I say about biofuels. And I call it the biofuels bubble, really, because since the 1950s, and I'm talking about the US situation here, that the researchers focused on biofuels, billions of dollars invested in research. But we have to understand a few things. Peak oil doesn't exist. Nature doesn't make hydrocarbons in batches. And the exploration and extraction technologies are improving. When we once thought that we would hit a peak and then suddenly see production going down, right now that's not happening. Biofuels from algae are perhaps the cheapest commodity that you can make from algae. So in other words, why would you make something that you can sell for $5 a gallon if you can make something that you can sell for $25,000 a milligram? And there are products that you can make from algae that's valued in the market. We can't compete with nature: scale, time, and cost. Nature's been making this biofuel, and petroleum is a biofuel. Yeah. It's a biofuel. It's made by nature over a scale and at a time that we simply cannot mimic. And then I like to ask the question: is there anyone making a sustainable profit from algae biofuels? Anyone? After all this time. Yeah. And then there are a number of megatrends happening in the world today that will affect your market down the road. We are currently witnessing the end of the age of the internal combustion engine for motor vehicles. Yeah. Countries are setting targets. India set a target by the year 2025, no new internal combustion engines on the road. China is doing the same thing. Vehicle manufacturers are now saying that after a certain period of time, they're no longer going to be making internal combustion engines. That's a huge market for liquid fuels. So the logical conclusion really is don't focus on biofuels. I think we need to flip it around. Every article that I read, years ago, looking at biofuels from algae, you'd always hear about the co-products. And I think that we need to look at biofuel as a co-product now. And almost all algae industries that I can think of that initially started off going after the biofuels have pivoted and are going towards the non-fuel fractions. I put a disclaimer there, really, because in the absence of easily available and verifiable public data to the contrary, it's my opinion that there's nobody making sustainable profits from biofuels at this time. If they are, they're keeping it a secret. Yeah. What if I told you that the only difference between fossil hydrocarbons, petroleum, and living algae is time, temperature, and pressure. Everybody here in this room would know that. Now, consider this to be your Algae 101 session in this workshop. Okay? You get a lot of basic information, but I think I'd like to make sure that everybody understands what we're talking about. I showed this slide to a group of Montessori school students, and nobody knew who that was. So you ask yourself a question: can we survive without fossil hydrocarbons? Because the truth is that out of petroleum, fuel, liquid fuel, is just a small part of what we do with it. All of the downstream petrochemicals are what really drive that industry. But the better question is, can we afford to continue relying on that? We're facing a number of challenges to ourselves as a species today. And while they've given us amazing benefits, they've allowed economic development at a pace, unknown before. We also know that there are serious problems to using fossil hydrocarbons. So the question is, if we have an alternative, why won't we move to it? And economics is one driver, but survival of the species might be a bigger driver. You change the climate, you destroy your soils, you do all sorts of things that limit or have negative impacts on the Earth's ability to sustain our life form. You might want to think again. Algae are a suitable alternative for many of the things that we do with petroleum or fossil hydrocarbons. And they do it in a more sustainable fashion. We have an imperative. So this is a story. We need to change our patterns of production and consumption from linear to circular. And we must live within the means of the planet. So let's look at algae from a very basic standpoint: the past, present, and future. A lot of people don't know this about algae. And I think this speaks to what the speaker before lunch was talking about. How do you tell that story? How do you get people engaged and to understand what these organisms are, what they have done, what they continue to do, and what they're capable of doing? I lump cyanobacteria in with algae. I know that's a huge no-no, but just for ease of simplicity. All right? Cyanobacteria, which were the first photosynthetic organisms on the planet, in a planet in which there was no free oxygen in the atmosphere. Imagine that. Right? 4 billion years ago, no free oxygen. It was methane, nitrous oxides, that's what it was. These organisms were the first to be able to take photons from sunlight, split carbon dioxide and a water molecule, and reform into a glucose molecule, with oxygen being the waste product of photosynthesis. The purpose of photosynthesis is not to produce oxygen so we can breathe. Right? But we are anthropocentric, so we believe that. The purpose of photosynthesis is to provide the basic energy molecule, the building block of life, the glucose molecule. But oxygen coming into the atmosphere changed a whole lot. It caused methane to be turned into carbon dioxide and water. Combustion. Right. That changed the greenhouse gas in the atmosphere. Because methane, as you know, is about 26 times more potent as a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. But taking carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere also changed the greenhouse gas potential in the atmosphere, leading to the first glaciation period, the first ice age on Earth, the Huronian glaciation. But oxygen being released into water caused the precipitation of the dissolved ions in water, leading to the diversification of the mineral resources that we now have and use. Oxygen in the atmosphere rose through the stratospheric levels and became ozone in the presence of UV radiation and NOx. Those are just some of the things that we can talk about as to how they terraformed the planet. They affected this planet on a planetary scale. They did it before and they can do it again. We just need to know how to harness that. Without them, we couldn't have land plants. You couldn't have life on land. The green that you see in land plants is chlorophyll that is in the chloroplast, which is an organelle within the plant cell. And that chloroplast was originally descended from algae. The chloroplast has different DNA to the rest of the plant cell. It's like our mitochondria. Without that, you could not have life on land. And they are the first to colonize bare rock and bare soil. So they've helped to create just about everything that we depend on for our sustenance. Today, they're the base of the food chain in any ecosystem in which they occur, hands down. Captain Paul Watson of the Sea Shepherd, which is a Greenpeace vessel, has said that if the oceans die, we die. I go one step further. So if the algae in the oceans die, we die. Everything else depends on that primary layer. They're still the largest source of oxygen on a daily basis. Right? Oceanic production of oxygen by microalgae is more than all of the terrestrial land plants combined. And there's one species in the ocean, Prochlorococcus, that is responsible for 20% of that output. They are involved in every major biogeochemical cycle. Anything you can think about, pretty much they play a role in. From phosphorus to iron to you name it. Out in the oceans, they produce dimethyl sulfonylpropionate, DMSP, which is a precursor to DMS, which is cloud condensation nuclei. They help the formation of clouds over the open ocean, and so contribute to the water cycle. Today, they're considered a nuisance, because I think it was Lanny who said, you know, you do a Google search here, and all you hear about is, you know, pond scum, slime, you know, yucky things, red tags. They do bad things. But all they do is react to what we do. And they're algal blooms because we pour too many fertilizers on the ground, or we emit too many effluents with high nutrient loads. So this is where we are. We need to see into the future. And I use the word sequester here. I know that there's somebody in the room who will disagree with that. So I change it to carbon capture. Not sequestration, but capture. Carbon capture and use. And if you want to reverse global warming and the attendant climate change, there's nothing better than you can do than use algae to take CO2 out of the atmosphere. They do it faster than any other organism alive. Right? And even if we were to flip a switch and stop all GHG emissions today, we still have about 5 decades of impacts to feel. The only thing that we can do to really change that for us and for future generations is to start reducing the greenhouse gas in the atmosphere. As I said, they did it once before. They can do it again. They can remediate and rejuvenate soils, recycle nutrients. We talk about peak oil not being a thing. Well, peak phosphate is a thing. And when we run out of phosphate, we run out of options. Okay? We can use them to produce a whole host of biochemicals and biomaterials. And most importantly, replace petroleum hydrocarbons for non-fuel petrochemicals and biomaterials. So they can save our place on the planet while supporting economic activity. That's what needs to happen. We need to get people, the general public, to understand that we're not just telling you stop using oil without giving you an option. There is a viable option. It can be done. This is the industry that must succeed. It has to. We sitting here are the people who must make that happen. Because if we don't, future generations are going to look back and they're going to curse us. How important is the algae industry? It's a platform for industry. Like what Ajit said earlier, it's a platform that will be sustainable, eco-centric. John Elkington coined the term people, planet, profit in 1984. I've moved away from that in my own definition. I've gone to eco-centric simply because people, planet, profit seems to imply that people are separate from the planet. We're not. We're part of the ecosystem. This industry will be high value, high return on investment, low environmental impact, and socially preferred. willingness to pay. It is the only way for humans now and in the future to derive the same benefits. And most importantly, to keep planet Earth hospitable to us. I never say we're trying to save the planet. That's a laughable concept to me. We cannot destroy the planet. We cannot save the planet. The planet doesn't need us to save it. What we are doing is we're destroying the planet's ability to have us live on it. Okay? When you destroy the soil and the air and the water and all of the biodiversity, who is going away? Us or the planet? So why should we? There are so many reasons why. This is a story. Food, feed, biomaterials that will not stay forever in the environment, and a platform for sustainable, knowledge-driven economic activity. What if we could harness these organisms and in so doing save our place on the planet? And what if we could make money while doing so? It has to be tied to an incentive, and that is the incentive. Make money while doing good. Do good while doing well. That's a rhetorical question. We know we can. The question is, how do you move from the proposition to the extraction? If you go and Google market research and algae, you'll see stuff like this come up. Market for algae products anticipated to expand at a CAGR of 5.7%. It was valued at $31.3 billion in 2016. You see any number of these. It cost about $5,000 to get the report. Okay. That's a business all in itself. But does anyone really know? Or is it just speculation and supposition? Where are these data coming from? How do you know that this is the value of what you have? Nobody knows. Nobody can tell me otherwise. But what do we know we can make from algae? This is where it lies. Food, feed, health supplements, pigments. Think it, make it. You're limited by imagination when it comes to algae. Seriously. This is where you can see the value. Applications of algal polysaccharides in biomedicine. We can make therapeutics and pharmaceuticals from a whole host of different products and extracts that we can get from algae. Biofertilizers, plant growth hormones, soil conditioners, targeted nutrients. And these are products, I'm not talking about ecosystem services yet, and I won't get into that, but we can use algae for wastewater treatment to capture CO2 from high-emitting CO2 industries, cement production, methanol production, power plants, you name it. Feed the CO2 to the algae. So we studied it, written about it, argued about it. Now, let's do it. But how do we do it? You have a brilliant idea for an algae business, disruptive innovation or invention. Where do you go from there? Enter the algaepreneur. Okay? These are the people who are going to make it happen. Entrepreneurship is the key to a successful algae industry. Well, it's the key to any industry, really. But they need to know the fundamentals of business. Business. Okay. Invention and innovation alone are not enough. The algae industry landscape is littered with the bodies of those who tried and failed. And some who tried with $300 million and still failed. You have to focus on the long game and build a team. You can't do it all yourself, no matter how good you think you are. Let's just talk about entrepreneurship. So Joseph Schumpeter, who's an Austrian economist, wrote about entrepreneurship. And the top paragraph says a lot, but really what he says is that entrepreneurs get things done. And that's what we need. We need people to get things done in this industry. Innovation and disruption, constantly. The role of the entrepreneur is the spark plug in the economic engine of any economy. That's where it gets its drive from. Now, entrepreneurs will end up becoming these monolithic giants. It's just the nature of capitalism. But it starts here. So from one entrepreneur to another, here's what they never tell you you need to know. Structure. What form is your entity going to take? Are you going to be an LLC, sole proprietorship, partnership, a corporation, whether it's an S Corp or C Corp or XYZ Corp? Joint venture, and that's only in the US context. I don't know how it stands for Europe or Asia. Okay. But when you realize, hold on, I need to figure out what my business entity is going to be. What does it mean for you for tax purposes or any other purpose? Corporate governance. All of these, very important to any business. And you ignore these things at your peril. You say to yourself, well, I can do that later on. No, you can't. Your corporate governance structure is important because if you're trying to attract investment, this is what they're going to look at. This is what they're going to look for. If you cannot withstand due diligence, forget about it. Legal considerations. As if corporate considerations was enough. Licensing, contracts, NDAs, terms of service, operating agreements, internal policies, compliance, intellectual property. Are you going to do trademarks? Are you going to do patents? What's the benefit of doing trade secrets versus patents? You name it. You have to figure out all these things. Nobody tells you that. You come up with a great idea in your garage or your basement. Nobody tells you that this is the thing. These are the things you need to be able to do. Finance, business plan, financial plan. You'll see the word plan everywhere in my presentation because planning is important. Get familiar with what an income statement, a balance sheet, statement of equity changes, your cash flows. Cash flow is king. Budget, use of proceeds, accounts, bookkeeping, internal controls. All of these things critical to the success of your business, independent of what idea or invention or innovation you have. How do you attract investments? Where is the money? Everybody says it's out there. You just have to go look for it. It's not that easy. I've been looking for money for a long time. You have to do your pitch decks. You have to have your projections. What type of investment are you looking for? Equity or debt? What's the difference? What's the trade-off? Have you done a fair market valuation on your company? What you have? Do you know about capital markets? The cost of capital. It costs money to get money. What's your burn rate? What's your exit strategy? Are you going after free money? Well, there's no such thing as free money, but it's non-dilutive financing, really. And how do you do that? Grants. You have to write a proposal that's, yay big. How many entrepreneurs are set up to do that? Use your investment dollars wisely. Don't overestimate your income and underestimate your expenses. Go low on revenue and high on cost. You meet somewhere in the middle, you'll be happy and your investors will be happy. Map a clear strategy to get off of investment dollars. Unless you're fortunate and you have a huge bankroll from an investor who's really patient and believing in what you can do, you have to find a way to get off of those investment dollars as quickly as possible. Fear undercapitalization. And all of these are speaking from experience. If you are not capitalized properly at the outset, you will never make it beyond the initial stages. Get to revenue. Cash flow is king. This is perhaps one of the most important slides that I will show you. Don't forget marketing and sales. They're not the same. Learn the difference. You need a marketing strategy and you need a sales strategy. Market research is important. Do your own or buy. It costs money to get that. Hire the right people. You need content developers, graphic artists, hire the right people. Digital marketing, it's exploding. I mean, it's where it's at now. Traditional advertising and marketing is just not happening anymore. Communicate, educate, simplify to all stakeholders. Even people you think are not in your realm, do it for them anyway. Not sell or die. It's that simple. Networking. No man is an island. You need to have contacts. You need to work with people. You need to figure out where the help can come from. So for example, the Algae Biomass Associations, Psychological Associations of America, European Algae Biomass, social media groups even. There are algae groups out there on LinkedIn now. Attend conferences like this one, or like the one later on this year. Continue your education. Always be learning. Because there are unknown unknowns. There's what you know, there's what you think you know, and there's what you don't know, which is usually way more than the other two combined. Emergent problems on scaling up. What works in the lab hardly ever works in the field. Trust me. Your technology is used, your process is used, changing legislation and policies. You don't know what's going to be different next year that might affect your ability to sell your product. New barriers to trade. They could be tariff or non-tariff barriers. Public perception and acceptance. People hear algae, they think, ew. How do you get them to accept algae so that you don't have to be afraid to put algae on your packaging? Competition. Who's your competition? Does it really matter? You know, there's a huge space out there. Maybe we should start, as Eric said, looking at our competition as collaborators. And what else? Who knows? We don't know it all. We're finding out as we go along. But we have some industry support systems, and here's what I think they should be doing. Investors, boom, the money. Don't judge all algae business opportunities by past failures in biofuels, please. We need to get them to understand that. And that the industry requires patient capital in these early years. Overnight success takes several years. An investor needs to be a strategic partner, not just a checkbook. You want to find investors who have something to bring to the table to help you get your business off the ground. And investors need to learn the algae basics. Again, we have to communicate that to them. Forewarned is forearmed. Less disappointments. You'll be able to recognize hype versus real practical deliverables. Can algae really do all that we say it can? Absolutely. Absolutely, no doubt in my mind. Will it happen overnight? Absolutely not. Industry trade associations. They must provide the support to small startup companies. So as I said, entrepreneurship is where it's at. If you get people to really see algae as an opportunity and everybody is trying to do it, that's when the industry starts rising. But you must provide them with support. We talked about somebody being a Shark Tank, right? And you know, why don't we host an algae tank where you get investors who know about the industry and are willing to put money in it, but you have a captive audience. And all they're hearing is pitches from algae-based companies and startups. Because we have to go out there and we have to fight everybody, the life sciences. Where does algae fit? Where? There isn't any ICS code for algae industry. They need to facilitate data and information sharing in the industry. We're siloed. We keep things to ourselves. We don't share information. The industry suffers from that. If the industry trade associations could assure anonymity and just collect data and disseminate, that would be a benefit to everybody in the industry. And develop incubators and accelerators for startups. They have to deliver value for membership. I'm not going to pay, you know, $10,000 to be a platinum member and don't get anything for it. Lobby for legislation and policies that facilitate algae. They're the voice on the hill, or wherever your policies and legislation are made. Provide business resources. Conduct workshops. Not just stand up and listen to somebody talk that you've heard talk for the last 5 years, but conduct a workshop where people come away with something. Raise awareness of the industry, its benefits, value, and potential. Media blitzes, communications campaigns at national and international levels. We need to do it. We can't do it by ourselves. Right? Neither one of us here, well, maybe Reliance could. We can't afford.
Not us either.
Right? We can't afford to do this. But if we have an industry association that is getting all of our fees and so on. And they do this at a national level or global level. It will make a difference for everybody. Governments facilitate entrepreneurship through legislation, policy, and public spend. Public purse must be open to funding this type of operation, algae business. Level the playing field for algae biotech. Treat them the same as fossil hydrocarbons. As Ajit was saying, you can't do it without the subsidy that ethanol gets. Fund wide applications of algae, not just biofuels. We still have that problem. Money goes to biofuels. Recognize the ability of algae to fix the problems we know that exist now and those we can anticipate. Take action now. We can't wait. And please don't politicize environmental issues. Okay? Climate change is not a political football. Soil degradation is not a political football. Conclusion. The algae industry doesn't have a science and technology problem, it has a business problem. Getting from the idea to profit has eluded most entrepreneurs. So sadly, most of them will die, but that's just the way it is. The best way to show the importance of the algae industry is by making money from it. You start making money from algae, everybody will want to do it. It's that simple. And business has to be the driver. The private sector has to be the driver. Government doesn't need to be involved in the business of algae, but rather in facilitating the business of algae. Education and awareness of consumers and policymakers are essential to industry success. We need to break the silos. Academia is doing one thing here. Government is doing one thing here. Business and the private sector is doing one thing here. And they never talk, they never cross-pollinate. That has to change. It costs money to be an algae entrepreneur. Be prepared. I know the speaker before lunch said she did it on a shoestring budget, but her shoestring budget might be like Fort Knox to me.
I don't think so.
Well, you'd be surprised. Investors have to be brought back to the algae table. Okay, we have to convince them that this is an industry worth investing in. Planning and strategy. Measure twice, cut once. Don't overpromise and underdeliver. So unless you have the capital to support the foray into biofuels, don't. Just don't. Figure out what your unique selling proposition is. Communicate well and often. Profit is not a four-letter word. Okay? You're in business to make a profit. So don't shy away from it. But it shouldn't be your end-all and be-all. It should not be your raison d'etre. Be the solution to a problem that a lot of people want solved. Don't make something that only one person will buy. Avoid undercapitalization. Know that cash flow is king. Don't overpromise and underdeliver. Practice ecocentric business. People are not separate from each other. And that's something that you can hook people with on an emotional level. Learn and evolve. Most important. Reinvent yourself continuously. Don't hang on to a mistake just because you spent a lot of time making it. That's my mistake. Let me have it. No, let it go. You won't survive otherwise. And finally, algae are humanity's best chance to keep Earth hospitable to us. We here now are the vanguard of that movement. A sustainable global economic platform in a post-petroleum world. Now, petroleum isn't going away anytime soon, okay? But we need to prepare for it. We need to make a conscious choice. Are we going to continue using it simply because it's cheap? Or are we going to consider the fact that it's destroying the very thing that we need to survive? We need to offer the alternative. We need to offer the sustainable, viable, economically feasible alternative. And that's what these organisms represent. Finally, don't give up. You've been doing this for a long time. Some of you just started. Some of you are now looking to get involved. Don't give up. We have to do this, and we can do it. So thank you all very much.